Hello, good morning. Um, okay, so I've been exploring more since the last streams. Uh, One thing first, I did not know this, and I've been like bashing on like React Query for this, and I've been completely wrong. I'm not saying that this is like necessarily how I would do it, but I didn't know TypeScript was able to do this. So what I typically, let's see, let's zoom in a little bit more. So what I've been typically saying is that you should have explicit states, and I still mean that. So like status, pending, status, resolved or whatever, and then you say, then you have date. Oh, come on, data string, whatever. So you have these specific explicit states you can check, and then you'll be able to infer what other the actual state you have available to you in those explicit states. Now, what I didn't know is that you can do this differently. So you can say you can create a union of like state combinations, because this is the problem with not having explicit states, is that if you just look at is pending, data, and error, you can get into impossible states. So for example, is pending can be true, you can have data, and you can have an error, right? Like technically you can do that, or at runtime. But you can still do type narrowing on this. So you can say that if pending is true, we don't have data, we don't have an error. If pending is false, or if we have an error, pending needs to be false and data has to be null. And yeah, maybe I should change this. If we have an error, so this represents, and if we have data, pending is false and error is null. What's very interesting about this though is that when I actually consume this, I don't even consume the state. I destructure it into like these floating variables. And this is where my intuition got lost, because I kind of see these as like individual values that TypeScript looks at. Like it's a Boolean. It's not state, right? It's just a Boolean. But still, TypeScript understands this. So is pending starts as a Boolean, data starts as a string or null, and error starts as error or null. But if I check is pending now pending is false down here, which is correct, and data is blah, blah, blah. But if I check error, is pending is false, I have the data guaranteed, and error is null. This is pretty amazing. So the drawback here is that, again, you don't have like explicit states, but maybe that's fine, right? But the point is, if you don't have explicit states, you have to define all. I can't just say error. If I remove error here, you'll get an issue. So you have to nullify the fields that aren't there. But for like something like data fetching, that makes sense. And you can destructure it like this. So you don't have to say state.status equals pending, state.status equals resolved, state.value, or state.data. I had no idea. So I just want to share that. It's very interesting. Anyways, so let's go to what I've been exploring. So we still have this article, and I'm gonna go through it again. But what I've concluded is that we're gonna have a section where we evaluate Vue, because Vue out of the box isn't suitable for at least my own requirements for using Vue. But we're going to explore them in the article and see where it kind of falls short for a React developer. And then we're going to incorporate this thing I call Vue productivity. Productivity means like for productivity apps, it's just, I don't know, maybe it should be called something else. But what I've been able to do is say that, okay, so you can use Vue, but you only need to use plugin Vue JSX. You don't need a plain Vue plugin. And in your TS config, and I find this funny, like even with the CLI, and you choose that you want to use JSX, it doesn't, like normally JSX import source should be Vue, but that's not actually part of the CLI, which I find interesting. So you actually get type errors when you use the CLI. Maybe I should create a PR for that. Maybe we should just do that. Is that easy to do? Like it should be very simple. Let's see, Vue.js core. Let's see, packages. Do we have like CLI here? Vue CLI, or is that its own thing? Or isn't that part of Vue? Compiler, runtime. Doesn't have like no, this is like actual Vue. This is nothing to do with that. How does that like when you do yarn create, how does it? Is that like package JSON private true? How does that work? Here's Vue. If I do yarn create, what in the package JSON tells it what to run? It has to be something here, right? Vue CLI. Create, yeah, this is the thing. Create Vue, maybe this is it. Template, base, config, ESLint, TS config, base. Yeah, so the thing is that it doesn't insert a JSX, and okay, maybe this is a little bit more difficult than, but I want to explore that. QE, how does this thing work? Config, JSX, name, Vue JSX, importer, initializer. Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so this should really, okay, so this is just changing the Vite config, but this should also update the TS config. Okay, I'm not gonna go into that now, but that's kind of sad that that doesn't work. Anyways, so what you need to do is, so one of the biggest problems I think with Vue and for a React developer is that it doesn't have typing for children. You don't have, one thing is that you don't have children on the props. Another thing is like you just have to use, well, you have to use a hook called use slots, but it's not typed. And even if you type the slots internally in the component, that typing won't be part of the consumption of the component. So it just doesn't work. So what this does is, instead of having Vue as the import source, you use this package as an import source, and it basically just uses Vue, except that it puts slots as a child property of JSX. So JSX has like official support for like children attributes, but you can choose what the name of it is. So React chooses children, and we choose slots. But what it means is that you get typing of the actual like JSX children. So that's the thing we got to do there. And then this Vue productivity has a thing called create component. And to be able to put the slots on the props, we have to use create component. But I think, so you can't, as a React developer moving to something like this, you won't be able to use a plain function component anymore. You have to use create component for it to work properly. And that's a threshold, right? But at the same time, it becomes a natural, it becomes more consistent. So it doesn't matter if you create a stateless component or a stateful component, you use create component. Yeah. So with the create component, you can now also just use props as normal, what you're used to. Yes, and another thing, and another reason you have to use create component is that Vue has this, for React developers, a very strange behavior, and it's called attribute fall through. So that means that if I were to use my component in somewhere else, and I would give it like an on click or a style or a class, like there's certain props that are like attributes for elements, those will be applied automatically to the root element you return from the component. So even though I don't put an on click here, I could still put an on click at consumption point, and I would actually have an on click on this H1. For me, I've tried to reason about why they've chosen to do this. I think it's just because it's a bit of a hassle using Vue templates to kind of pass down the clicks and stuff. So it's just easier for them to do it automatically. But as React developers, we want the component itself to describe its behavior. Like it shouldn't have behavior that's defined from the outside. If you want to be able to describe behavior from the outside, you have to pass it in so that you can control that behavior. It's interesting. So what this create component also does is that it's actually possible to turn off that behavior, inherit attributes. So then you actually have full control within the component, only using props. And that also allows us to, then we also avoid having to explicitly set the props as a runtime thing. So here we had props count. We really had to pass an array here with count as a string for Vue to understand that, oh, the count should be a prop, but anything else should be a fall through attribute. But when that's turned off, we don't have to do that. And now what we do is that since we now know that slots are our prop for dealing with children, so we keep the term slots because it's Vue after all instead of children. But what happens now is that Vue will still have its internal handling of slots. Like there's no slots property actually coming in on the properties. It's only a typing thing. So what we do in create component is that we add slots to the properties as a proxy to the underlying slots. So it becomes very natural to use them. And you can even use like named slots. So instead of making slots a string here, you could make it an object where each key is like something you want to render. And that will work just fine. But the nice thing now is that when you create a component, you just have a function, just like you know from React. It's the same behavior as React, only it's called slots instead of children. And it's optimally rendering, like as I explained in the previous streams. It won't reconcile any like nested components or anything. The only thing that causes reconciliation is in the isolated scope of a component. If there's some element there that's using props or state, and that changes, then it will reconcile. But it won't reconcile going down the component tree and reconcile. Unless like this prop is passed to a nested component, then it will reconcile, right? It only reconciles what it should reconcile. That's the whole point of this. But the nice thing now is that you'll have to excuse all the typing. I'm just showing like the full complexity of what you can manage. Is that when you want to add state to a component, what you do is you create another function that Vue calls setup. And that can take props, and it needs to return some state. And you still have your component as normal that can take its props. So for example, the component would take props of slots, but your setup would take props of initial count, for example. Yeah, this should be props.initial count, because that prop is related to setting up the state, while slots is related to rendering the user interface. But these are combined, right? So when you consume this component, you will need to pass initial count and slots. Anyways, it's the same create component, but now you pass two arguments. You pass the setup and my component. And now the component will get the state as the first argument, and it will get its props as the second argument. But again, many times you don't have props on the setup. Many times you don't have props on the user interface. Like this is just showing the full complexity. And then I was dabbling around with stores and stuff, but I don't think it's necessary. I think we can simplify it a shit ton. Because what I noticed, so the thing about React contexts is that you have to provide them as their own components. And that's often not nice, because what you ideally want to do, I think, is that you just want to say, so for example here, we have a component and it has a counter. And currently this is hardwired together, right? This count is only available to this component unless it passes it as a prop to any nested components. But maybe we want to say that, oh, but this count, yeah, you should use it in this component, but any nested component should be also able to use this count without it being passed as a prop, right? That's really what we want, I think. I don't think we necessarily want to define like this separate store. We want to mount it and then as like a provider component. I don't think provider components is necessarily what we want, because the state is part of rendering some piece of UI, and separating those things often becomes unnatural. So you kind of you often feel, so for as an example, maybe this is a to-dos component, right? And then as part of that to-dos component, you want to define the to-dos and make them available. But you also want to, let's say you have a very complex to-dos UI, and you want any nested component to also use those to-dos. So what you would do then is, let's see in this example, what you would do is that you would just create a provider for the state. Here being a count, or it could be to-dos. And then you export use counter, which is just, it's called inject in Vue. And what you do now is that you have the exact same setup as if you were only going to use this for this component. Oh, look at this. I say to-dos here. I should change this. Anyways, you use the same setup as if you were going to use it with only this component, and you still expose it as state to this component, but you return it with provide. So you're not only returning this state, you're also providing it to the rest of the componentry of this component. So now you can both use it in the component that owns the state, but you can also go into any nested component here, and you can just say use counter, and you can do that in its setup to initialize the state of that component, or you can use it in the component itself to just use the state and observe it. So we kind of remove the whole concept of a store even. The only thing we think about here, and it scales endlessly. Like there's no like performance issues or global or scoped or anything like that. The only thing you have to think about is you create these components, they can take props, they can take slots, and if you need some state, you create a new function called setup or state or whatever you want, which is the which will be called when the component is instantiated, and you return whatever state you want to give to the user interface of that component. So this is like a controller or whatever. And then if you want to also provide that state to any nested component of that UI, you just put provide around it. And then you have this inject thing. And that's how you do it. So the way your components are structured, or your code is structured in terms of files and directories, is that you just have your component tree, but then you have like, maybe you have an app component, and in that app component, you have a setup that exposes some API or something. And then you have like a to-dos component, and that has a setup that provides the to-dos and whatever. And then you choose like by component, do I need some state? Should that state be only part of this component and I do props passing? Or at any moment, you can just not even refactor it. You can create a provider and then return the exact same thing, only with provide. And now you're suddenly able to use that same state, not using props, but just using use counter. And I've never seen such a natural progression before. And I really love that. I really love that. And I think with the dev tools, like being able to just look at the component tree and see which of the components actually has this setup and is providing state, it could be pretty amazing. So you don't need to have these like two very separate ideas about state stores and UI. You always define them together because they do like rely on each other. But you can still choose, right? You can still go and create like a store that's only this part, right? You only want to create like a setup that has this provide inject, and then you can choose how you want to mount that. Maybe you create like a component that has this setup, and then instead of returning like this, it just returns a function with just returning slots, props.slots, for example, which is basically the provider component. You can still do that, but that's like even another level. And I'm not sure if you actually need that. So yeah, I really like this. Yeah, I really like this. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to read the article again. I'm going to adjust it, and then we're going to incorporate this stuff into the article. And explain why Vue doesn't work for React developers out of the box. Like, Vue works for a React developer if they're ready to move to their templating solution. Maybe you have experience with like Angular or Backbone, like you've been in the business for a long time, or maybe you use Angular at some point, and you're kind of, templating languages is fine for you. But if you want to use JSX with Vue as a React developer, I just don't think it's the current state of the Vue API is too finicky to kind of sell that idea. But that's the thing we're discussing in this article. So let's see. Yeah, the Vue DevTools. So the Vue DevTools are like, I'm very much of a DevTool developer myself. So when I built Cerebral had a pretty amazing DevTool. Like, it was an exotic API. Well, you can say templating languages are quite exotic as well, because you're kind of just coming up with stuff. Regardless of that, Cerebral was based on these signals, where you could actually read in the debugger everything you were kind of doing and the flow of everything. And you would have the full state of the application, and then you would see this historic list of of changes and a lot of cool stuff. And then with Overmind as well. Oh. Yeah, so Overmind kind of follow that. And you had the same like full state of your application. This was like a single state store concept. But you could also see like all your actions running, even all your effects and everything. It was really, really cool. So I love DevTools, and I love how DevTools can build the mental image of your app for you. And Vue is amazing at doing that. But what I really love about the Vue DevTools is that they have a plugin system. So people can create these, like that's the thing I want to highlight in the article as well, is that Vue has this ideology of like enabling developers. It's not about come and they're not trying to adopt people to their technology. It's very much just enabling developers. So even I saw the last presentation from Evan, and he talked about how they're going to do the Vue DevTools to a generic DevTool implementation. So other frameworks can use it as well, which is really, really good. And then you have the plugin system. I haven't tried it, but as I understand, you have more of a DevTool platform where you can install plugins for whatever tools you're using. And then you kind of enhance the DevTooling. Yeah, so yeah, because you have because salvage, that's such a good word. That's how I feel about React now, or what I've spent a lot of my time on is salvaging React. But it's like so fundamentally, it just so fundamentally diverges from what I think, how I think it should work. Not like how React should work, but how like a UI framework should work, that I don't want to spend any more time on it. Anyways, so MobX has MobX State Tree, which I think is the closest thing you get to Overmind in React. Yeah, I'm not sure if the React team is gonna adopt the Vue DevTools there, but at least the Vue team is making like a JavaScript framework DevTool platform kind of thing, or framework. So any kind of JavaScript tooling can just get a lot of stuff out of the box, which is amazing. So they're doing like, that's the thing about Vue. Like they have Vue, but then they have Vite, which is being adopted across like the ecosystem. And then they have this dev tooling platform. And then they're also looking at taking on the tool chain. Like you have Vite, but you also have linting. You have typing, like everything that's related to not coding. They're looking at just creating the JavaScript toolchain. And if anyone's going to do that, it's the Vue team. So I'm super excited about that. I know that there's this tool called Roam from the Bobble creator, but I'm not sure what happened to that project. But it had the same promise, like becoming the tool chain for JavaScript. But I have high hopes. Like Vue as an organization is in a much better position to be able to do that. Yeah, I think MobX State Tree is, as you say, is pretty much dead. Yeah. Does it have performance issues? Interesting. Anyways, let's jump into the article. Yeah, pending title. So let me I need to read through this for myself as well to kind of check the rhythm of it. Okay, so after the summer of 2014, I quit my job as a consultant. Up to that point, I worked on several projects, amongst those building a highly interactive web-based switchboard for mobile phones. It would take events from the GSM network to produce your call state, show queues of callers, conference calls, SMS phone books, call groups, Outlook sync, etc. It was all written in JavaScript, and we used no frameworks. It gave me a solid understanding of the and no existing tooling. It gave me a solid understanding of the language and how to organize and build tooling to scale, because we did build our own tooling. We didn't just write JavaScript, right? We created these abstractions to organize, and I think I actually I built my own like version of jQuery, which was very much to understand how jQuery works, and make it like super simple and only do what we needed it to do. And also, I think we used a module. If you remember, there was this thing called what the hell was that called? It was this module. I can't even remember what it was called. Like you had CommonJS, but you had a wrapper around it. So you could like do module imports. Anyways, I built something anyways, doesn't matter. I must have been a magnet to productivity tools, because that is all I have been doing, been working on since. Managing a lot of client state due to complex user interfaces that has a high degree of interactivity. To manage all this, I built tools like Cerebral, later Overmind, and written a myriad of articles like value comparison versus mutation tracking, blah, 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 blah. My most recent work has been at Code Sandbox. In this article, I'm going to share some strong opinions, and even though these opinions are based on my experience with are targeted. In this article, I'm going to share some strong opinions, and even though it's easy. Yeah, and even though these opinions some strong opinions about React. React is a tool I honestly owe my whole career to. Opinions I share are based on the types of applications I needed to build, and what I have learned working in teams and scaling. Learn working in teams and scaling. Oh my god, what do I want to say here? In this article, I'm going to share some strong opinions about React. React is a tool I honestly owe my whole career to. I don't want to go, so let me just make some notes. Specific types of apps, scaling with teams, moving fast. That's also a thing. I worked a lot in startups, and we need to move fast, right? And I've worked with tools that just slows us down. Even tools I've been responsible for, like, at least not responsible, but been kind of pushing solutions that has slowed us down. But I blame React. Scaling with teams, moving fast. Those are things I want to talk about. Anyways, user interfaces as a function of state. I quit my job in 2014 because my partner and me were moving across the country, and I wanted to spend 6 months self-educating. I was incredibly lucky because at this point React and Webpack was just starting to take a hold. I remember being hesitant to begin with, but long story short, the idea of UI as a function of state resonates as strongly with me today as it did when I first understood it. Every time the count changes, this counter function runs again, and React will reconcile and update the DOM. But what truly makes this great is blah, blah, blah. I can just use JavaScript to create a dynamic behavior of this user interface. But not only that, I get complete TypeScript support out of the box. Not only to infer the types of the props, but type narrowing and any other feature from TypeScript that applies to expressing dynamic user interfaces. This is a really good thing when building large productivity apps. But this core concept of UI as a function of state has been faded over time in React. This fundamental concept that makes so much sense first started to diminish with the introduction of hooks. And here we see a state hook. Embracing the component as a function makes sense, but the introduction of hooks disrupted React developers' intuition about how code is executed in the language runtime. For example, every time this component reconciles, it looks like it will initialize the count state, but that is not true. It will only do it on the first call of the component function. The function looks stateless and pure, but there is this hidden, it doesn't even look stateless and pure. This function was stateless and pure, but now has hidden state in React that you cannot see. Hidden, the component function was stateless and pure, but now with the useState hook, as oh my god, I'm not sure if I'm in a super good mood to write. Let's try a bit more. The component function was stateless and pure, but with the useState hook, it now has state. My point is that there's one thing is introducing state, which breaks down the user interface as a function of state, but it also introduces this like, since it reconciles, the function is called again and again, it doesn't do what you expect it to do. You would think that the count will become 0 every time it reconciles, right? But it doesn't. But with the useState hook, it now. But with the useState hook, that is not true anymore. Additionally, the code does not do what it states. The count is not set to 0. The useState hook does something additionally, god damn it, the hook acts differently the first time. This is not my point. The point is that it just looks weird. It looks weird because we're calling useState with 0 as if we're like setting something to 0. Like, that's what code execution does. It's like we're calling a function, you give it a value, and then you get the thing back. But you're only instantiating something the first time it's called. Oh, awesome, madam. Yeah. Yeah, it's super nice. And you can build on top of that if you want to do that, but I really love that as well. Like it's just incremental changes to, like, you're just exposing more and more as you need it. Anyways, the component function was stateless and pure, but with the use they took that it's not true anymore. We have introduced us, and so this is kind of because we have conceptually at least introduced a side effect. But React is saying that it doesn't have, like, the reason we have strict mode and stuff, it's to avoid side effects. So I think some of the mathematics around the hooks, it's called something very specific. I can't remember what it's called. Is that it's a way to introduce state without side effects. What is React hooks based on? What was there's a concept in programming. What was it called? What is the programming concept? I remember this back in the day. It has a some no, what was it called? Let's ask chat. Know what the programming concept that React hooks is based on? Sorry for the size of the text. I don't think I can. Oh, I can zoom. No, it's not closures. No, it is something else. It is like lambda effects or some mathematical guarantee type of thing. Yeah, algebraic effects. Exactly. Which are more abstract mathematical concepts from programming language theory. These provides a way to model side effects in functional. Yeah, exactly. Such as state changes in the modular, instead of handling effects directly in the core of your code, like an imperative. Yeah. You have to love this effect handlers. Run consistently, yeah. Or in timing or is maintained over. This offers mathematical guarantees about when effects will occur in a functional program. Okay. And this is great stuff. Let's just copy it. But this is this is what I'm talking about. Hook that is not. We have introduced. It looks like it will not only do it on the first call. For example, every time it looks like it will initialize. Okay, let's just talk about that. Embracing the component as a function makes sense, but the introduction of hooks disrupted React developers' intuition about how code is executed in the language runtime. Hooks is based on the mathematical concept of algebraic effects, which gives guarantees, which is a way to manage side effects in functional paradigm. This is what ChatGPT has to say about it. Let's see. Where is it? Oh. Can I do it? Oh. Oh, this doesn't look good. Maybe there's an article that explains it. React hooks, algebraic effects. Yeah, here we go. Effects with with flaws. It treats fun classes as it's because we don't have one-shot delimited continuation. Like this is a concept that comes from the functional world and people who understand what monads are. And this is why is React so difficult to understand? It's because of this stuff. And you can argue that you should just be a better programmer, but what the fuck? We're just trying to build value. We try to build apps. We're not trying to adhere to any mathematical concepts. Like, I'm sure functional programming and monads and algebraic effects has their place, but I don't think that place is in web UI development. It's just too complicated for the people who are gonna build this stuff. Like, user interfaces seem so intuitive, right? Yeah, anyways. You can check one-shot delimited with... Maybe this is a good one. Yeah, this is from Dan Abramov. Okay. Have you... Sorry, I'm kind of going all over the place here. Have you heard about algebraic effects? My first attempts to figure out what they are or how or why I should care about them were unsuccessful. I found a few PDFs, but they only confused me more. Blah, blah, blah. My colleague, Sebastian, because Sebastian, he's like... It's pretty amazing what he's done for React and the community at large. Like, he's a smart dude. He works at Vercel now, I think. But he has what I fear about the React team is that there's a distance between. Well, I shouldn't say that. Well, I'm honest to have an opinion. Like, or I'm allowed to. I'm honest. Did I say that? Anyways, I'm allowed to have an opinion, but I don't know how the React team and the rest of the like UI teams at Meta, like how they integrate. And I know there's a shit ton of complexity to manage there. But I wonder how the dynamics are. I do wonder how the dynamics are. It seems like, again, we're talking about Vue here. Evan was working at Google. He had like he was the person who built the UIs, right? And there's something about creating tools to solve your own problems. And he built a tool to solve his problem because the framework they used at Google was just too horrible. Or was just too tedious, and that led to Vue. So he is like, even though he's very much like a technical person now, and probably doesn't do that much UI implementation anymore, he at least has that experience. And I wonder if that's the case with the React team. If the React team is more of a, you have these like hardcore programmers, but they do have like this integration with a ton of UI developers and challenges. But there's something about like just having an intuition of getting things done, as opposed to doing things right. Yeah, I think that's what I want to say. It turned out that the algebraic effects are cool concept and not as scary as I thought. Not production ready yet. That means unlike if function or even, you probably can't really use them. Research programming language. Oh yeah. So why should I care? Okay, what the name might be a bit intimidating, but the idea is simple. If you're familiar with try catch blocks, you'll figure out blah 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 algebraic effects very fast. Let's recap try catch first. Yeah, I think this is really about bubbling. Yeah, this is about bubbling up errors in this case. What does this have to do with algebraic effects? In the above example, once we hit an error, we can't continue. When we end up in the catch block, there's no way we can continue executing the original code. We're done. It's too late. The best we can do is recover from a failure and maybe somehow retry what we were doing. But we can't magically go back to where we were and do something different. But with algebraic effects, we can. This is an example written in hypothetical JavaScript I like. Let's call it blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so you're saying perform, ask name, try, make friends, handle effect. So search for web and find it. Instead of throw, we use hypothetical. Perform similar instead of try catch, we use. Yeah, I don't want to read all of this. I just know that it's a programming concept that's related to like functional programming, which makes sense. Like React is functional. But I do think they took it too far with this stuff. Is there like it's worth noting that algebraic effects came out of functional programming research. Some of the problems they solve are unique to pure functional programming. For example, in languages that don't allow arbitrary side effects. You have to use concepts like monads to wire effects through your program. If you ever read a monad tutorial, you know you're a bit tricky to think about. Help do something similar with less ceremony. This is why so much discussion about algebra is incomprehensible to me. However, I do think that even in an impure language like JavaScript, algebraic effects can be a very powerful instrument to separate the what from the how. And so the whole point is really to do things declaratively, right? Declaratively means you describe what you're going to do, not necessarily how you do it. So you can, yeah. But what you're doing. But I don't quite get this, because enumerate files, that's an imperative function. Like you call it with a directory. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. Language where mutation is uncommon. Yeah, and that's also the thing. Like React is trying to make that's also like, okay, I'm gonna make a statement. So React has been pushing against JavaScript for so long. It's almost like the React team, like they don't like JavaScript. They would ideally write React in a different language. Like algebraic effects, mutation is the root of all evil. Like mutation is one of the really great things about JavaScript. And you can talk as much as you want about your like your level as a programmer. I don't fucking care about your level as a programmer. You want to build something that creates value for other people. And if there's a language that allows you to do that because it's relatable, like it has, like the language has like mutation, which means you can just go and push something to a list. You don't have to recreate the list and the structure into it and think about immutability. Like immutability gives great guarantees for the underlying system, but it creates overhead for your mental like thinking how to actually perform and do things. And that's how I feel. It's like we're just trying to build some user interfaces here. We're just trying to create some user experiences. And the less of a mental overhead we can have doing that, the better it is. But immutability, algebraic effects, all of this stuff, maybe it's great for like the system and the computer. And if you need to like build certain types of systems, but for someone who's just trying to create like a freaking web user interface, it's, yeah, anyways. I'm gonna link to this, which is a way to manage side effects in a functional. On a mathematical concept of algebraic effects, which is a way to manage side effects. Does any language implement algebraic effects? Oh. F. Interesting. Coca. Oh, camel. Haskell has it. Interesting. F sharp. Well, yeah, so basically, yeah, so I think like JavaScript is object oriented and based on mutation. Like that is JavaScript. And the React team has tried to make it functional and immutable. And maybe, I don't know. Is that a good thing? Maybe? I don't know. But it's been stressful. That's what I want to say. It's been very stressful. And I'm throwing statements all over the place here. I'm not saying that anything I'm stating here is the truth. Like, this is my impressions, my experiences, my frustrations. So please take it with a grain of salt. But hooks is based on the mathematical concept of algebraic effects, which is a way to manage side effects. Other languages, embracing the component as a function makes sense, but the introduction of hooks disrupted React developers' intuition about how code is executed in the language runtime. Hooks is based on the mathematical concept of algebraic effects, which is a way to manage side effects in the functional paradigm. What do I want to say here? This makes sense if you want to take reconciling user interfaces beyond state UI. I don't want to make any conclusions here. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Embracing the component as a function makes sense, but the introduction of hooks disrupted React developers' intuition about how code is executed in the language runtime, in the component. Hooks is based on a mathematical concept, which is a way to manage side effects. Yeah. the disruption becomes an even bigger problem. Yeah, what is the actual disruption? Embracing, but the introduction of disruptive hooks is based on the mathematical concept of algebraic effects, which is a way to manage JavaScript is not a functional language. I don't want to make like large statements like that. Yeah, I guess this is why they tried to make Reason, right? This was why, like, they should have continued. They should have a practical a practical React, and like a technically correct Reason to manage side effects in a functional paradigm. This is far from the object-oriented, and I don't want to say that, which is a way to manage side effects in a functional paradigm. In a functional paradigm. If you think, well, I don't want to kind of make it like this is a bad thing. It's not. There's a reason this feature is in functional languages. But what are these other languages doing? Are they building user interfaces? Like, none of these these languages could you summarize what these languages are typically used for? Sure. F, user research and experimentation. Oh yeah, user functional typically Cocoa is also used mostly for research and learning. OCaml is widely used for writing compilers. Haskell is well known in academic research for its strong emphasis on pure functional programming. Yeah, so F#, I guess, is the data processing and financial modeling. Backend development, distributed systems. Oh. Okay, so that's something I kind of want to make the point that this is like mind-bending shit. Like, here is a summary of languages that natively support it and what those languages are typically used for. So F, Coca, OCaml. Unison, is that a language or is that? Yeah, it's a language. So it is safe to state that this is a mind-bending concept for engineers building user interfaces for web-based products for the web, user experiences for the web. This disruption becomes an even bigger okay, but this is nice. I'm glad we kind of got to that point. Yeah, how this how should I put this? How this disruption damn it. Embracing the component as a function makes sense, but the introduction of hooks disrupted React developers' intuition about how code is executed in the component. Hooks is based on the mathematical concept of algebraic effects, which is a way to manage side effects in a functional paradigm. Here is a summary of languages that natively support it and what those languages are typically used for. The disruption, well, I kind of stated that. But yeah, disrupted React developers' intuition about how code is executed in the component. Okay. It is safe to state that this is a mind-bending concept for engineers building user experiences for the web. JavaScript engineers building user experiences for the web. How this and the disruption goes beyond the mental model. An even bigger problem hooks can introduce multiple functions. Okay, we're back on it. Sorry, this took a long time, but I think it was an important point. The disruption goes beyond the mental model. Hooks can introduce multiple function closures in the component scope. Without hooks, there are no active closures. Let us inspect the counter again. When you read this code, your intuition tells you that we are just calling a function and there is nothing stuck that will affect the next call of the function. But with hooks, this can happen. We'll just have a use effect that's logging out something. The callback pass to use effect creates a stuck function scope for the effect. Based on props.toggle, we put in the dependency array. That means some of the code in your component lives longer than the last reconciliation of the user interface. But not only that, different closures are bound to different past reconciliations. Okay, so now we have a use effect with a timeout. If this component reconciles during the timeout, due to count being increased, the log will still show 0. I know it is a silly example, but the point is that the hooks disrupted our intuition on how code executes, and it is an additional mental overhead. Oh, did I? The log will still show 0 from the first reconciliation. I know it is a silly example, but the point is that hooks disrupted our intuition on how code executes in a component. It creates an additional. It creates a mental overhead to the simplicity of state. Yeah, user interfaces as a function of state. Whew. React has never been the most performant solution because of the reconciler, but the reconciler is what has given us the ability to just use the language to express dynamic user interfaces using a function. To improve the performance of React, we have typically leaned on Memo. This primitive is basically a wrap. Let me just check. It's basically a wrapper around components doing props checking to see if React needs to reconcile that component. What I find curious though is that React has such eager reconciliation. For example, we have a my component that doesn't take any props. We have a parent component that renders my component, which does take props. When the count updates in parent component, it will by default reconcile the my component as well, even though it takes no props. Why reconcile user interfaces as a function of state if there is no state? And then there is a question why Memo is not internally added on any component taking props. There is of course an argument that the comparing of the props is overhead when they often change. The extreme case would just add work, as it would compare the props and reconcile every time. But calling a component, evaluate all the hooks, and reconcile the returned user interface description, my intuition just tells me that this default comparing of props would end up net positive. But who am I to challenge this? I only have my yeah, but who am I to challenge this? The reason I talk about it though is what follows. I think there should be a comma there. As React had performance issues, it introduced concurrent mode. Concurrent mode allowed React to split up its reconciliation work. Previously, the reconciliation was blocking, meaning that there was a risk of jank in the user interface when the component trees are big and Memo is not efficiently used. And with concurrent mode, we got strict mode. Strict mode was thought of as a way to help developers detect side effects in their components due to the wrong... Oh, Sam, please go. I'll just keep reading until you give me something to look at. Strict mode was thought of as a way to help developers detect side effects in their components due to wrong hooks usage. In development, React will call components hooks and lifecycle hooks in class components twice. To ensure that there are no side effects. This is important as concurrent mode needs a guarantee that any pending reconciled componentry can be thrown away. But with this addition, the intuition of how a React component works was disrupted again. Previously, you could safely I mounted, I unmounted, but this was no longer possible and added confusion as things are running twice in development. We basically lost the most basic lifecycle hook for components when the user interface is mounted and when it is unmounted. And now we are here with... and sorry if I was talking too fast, Sam. Please share a link, or maybe you could create a gist or something on GitHub, unless you already have something. But yeah, please let me know. I'll just keep reading in the meantime. And now we're here with React 19 and its compiler. The compiler optimizes your code, adding memoization for you. But there is one thing the compiler will not fix, and it is the most important source of performance issues in my experience: context. One of the main reasons for performance issues in sharing state across components. To do that efficiently, we use a React. That sounded weird. One of the main reasons for performance is sharing to share state efficiently. We use React context. The consuming basically the topic you brought up on earlier, to whip something up. Oh yeah, it's spam blocked. Copy text. It is spam. Oh yeah, it's the Mobex thing you talked about. React's ecosystem is a great place to be. Yeah, I agree. So we do not want to leave it just because of how annoying hooks, state management, and random performance tweaking is. So we use an observable solution like Mobex. It solves the performance problems, but it also adds boilerplate, but isn't quite interoperable with React state and props. There's no correct convention either. So your team is left to figure it out on each new project. This micro framework exists to define a convention while being simple enough to review or copy paste parts of it into your own project. Yeah, really, is it Shad CN or something? At least that's where I was exposed to it. Like, why not? Even Tailwind does this. Like, why not just let developers copy paste? Why should everything be an npm install? Like, why not just copy paste it? And like with path aliasing in your project config, you can still like absolutely import these helpers as if it was an npm package. Anyways, oh, or is it a package? Anyways, yeah, so observer, some prop after. Is this drop-in replacement? Oh, drop-in replacement for observer. So it does work exactly the same. Yeah. Enhance composition pattern. Observer. Dialog head. Yeah, observer, dialog. After. Oh, chaining. Oh, okay. So you're adding it to the dialog. Is that to avoid? It's basically okay. So you're so X becomes kind of this chaining utility. So it's not only returning the component, it also adds some properties to the component so that you can compose them together. Head classes, any static. And classes, it can provide any such as surfacing public class names to override styles with. Interesting that you're using useState to instantiate a Mobex class. Does that work? Like, I guess it works, as it's not like firing off any side effects. Yeah, convenience thing. Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. So here we see. So this. Oh, so you have an X useState. Interesting. Use on mounted. X use props. So this is. Oh, so this is applying the props to. Yeah, so this is kind of. Yeah, so with. I don't know when you jumped. Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's like a strict mode thing as well, right? Because the use state callback is run twice in strict mode, as far as I know. Not that it's that's what I meant about side effect. Like if the class here had a constructor that like did something, maybe I created a subscription or whatever, you would kind of have like any side effect you would risk in strict mode, which is kind of what strict mode is protecting against. But it's fine to do this, like, because it's just an object. Oh, so you have some expected. Oh, sorry. So I guess this is kind of just going through the props and then updating this props object, because this props object is an observable, right? Move class state wherever you need it. State should be decoupled completely from the components. Yeah, I agree. State should be decoupled. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's interesting how, like, I've also used, I remember I actually built some, I'm gonna need to find that video. I created this project once, this state management thing, which was a visual thing. You would actually, and I used tsmorph to generate code and extract code to show in the UI. So you can imagine having a canvas where you would drop these nodes, and each node represented a class. And then, so you could drop a node, write the name of the node, and it would actually create a file in your project with the name of that node. And then you could just click the thing and it would open it in VS Code. And then you could go in and you could add properties to it and say, this is an observer, this is an action. It was also using MobX. And then when you went back and looked at the node, it will actually display the observers and the actions and everything. But the really cool thing is that it had its own like injection system. So if I added another node and then I would drag a line between the nodes, it would actually inject, again, it would create a new file and stuff, but then it would actually add injection code into the class. So now you could suddenly use this other class and this class and so on. Anyways, so my point is that it's very interesting how MobX has introduced classes. And I think for most developers, it's like, I talked to Adam about this as well. Like doing that shift between a functional like user interface versus like stateful class-based object-oriented state handling. I think that switch is perfectly fine for most developers, but it's like it is two different paradigms, and maybe they should be two different paradigms. Personally, I don't like the it's a like classes looks very nice when they're simple, but when they become complex, they have a lot of keywords in them. A lot of keywords, which is just stuff you wouldn't have if you just use a function and return an object. But I'm not saying like it's just a personal preference. But classes is like it's like it's a really good structure for state. Anyway, sorry, MobX and classes go well together, and classes are a great structure to represent the imperative nature of state in TypeScript. Yeah, exactly. And TypeScript came from C C#, which is like all classes, object-oriented, imperative nature. Oh, you saw that? I have to find the video. Let's see if I can find it. YouTube, Christian Alfoni, Mobex visual editor. Is it this one? Oh, here it is. Okay, so I had a presentation. Yeah, here it is. Let me... do I actually show it off here? I guess I do. Let's see what I'm doing here. Yeah, so here I'm adding the class. Yeah, anyways, I can share that video if anyone wants to watch it. Anyway, sorry. Use the... Yeah, and I think like, I don't know how many different abstractions I've tried to build on React. But what I've where I've gotten to now after all these years is that am I creating this abstraction to make things more accessible, or am I creating it because I don't like how React fundamentally works? Which has kind of led me to this crisis of maybe I shouldn't do React, maybe I should do something else that I think fundamentally does what I think it should do, and then I rather make it more accessible. Yeah, that's how I feel about this whole Vue thing. I think Vue fundamentally does exactly what it should. It reconciles function components using JSX. It's only about user interface. It's a user interface as a function of state. And then, as you mentioned here as well, like state is something else. That's something that you should define with reactive primitives. In this Vue thing, it's just a function, but here it's like a class. And then you define that. You have actual lifecycle hooks that you can depend on, and so on. But yeah, Vue does that. It's just that its API isn't accessible enough. So yeah, I guess that's the question. Yeah. Yeah, at the core level. Exactly. Yeah, so this journey here is only about like, okay, let's see where this journey ends. Are we able to get to a point where Vue actually can look like an alternative to like a hardcore React developer who has this friction with at the core level of React, how React actually operates, and it feels that React is kind of working against you? You know what? I actually saw a package. You can mount a React component in Vue. But yeah, what I think is the thing I like from React is to define a user interface as a function, and then just like this, and then it reconciles, so I can like just use the language. This thing, the user interface definition in Vue works exactly like React, only optimally so. And then it introduces this setup function, which is the state management. Yeah. But yeah, it would be interesting if you could kind of... And that's also a thing, right? With Yeah, I wish it would be nice if there was like a general way of binding state to UIs. I guess web components is kind of the thing that's been trying to resolve this. Yeah. Anyways. But yeah, I don't I think like creating abstractions like it depends on the project you're working on. Like if you're working on something on your own, if you're working on in a team that's invested in creating abstractions, that's also great. So like more people own the abstraction. Or if you want to just share with the world, these are my frustrations. I created this abstraction to alleviate those frustrations. That's also a really great thing. Even though people like necessarily don't use the tool, there's a communication of like frustration and learning opportunities on how to solve different things. Yeah, I get buy-in from colleagues. I think the biggest problem with Vue trying to adopt React developers is that they're using Vue developers to tell React developers about how Vue developers want to write Vue code, which is basically single file templates or single file components. And it's such a hard sell to a React developer. I would say it's like, yeah, it's hard. But maybe this article could at least be something where a React developer tells React developers why they should consider Vue. But yeah, regardless, this whole thing is just a huge ass vent for me. Like just writing this article, building this abstraction for Vue that actually makes Vue appealing to at least me. So I don't feel like I'm leaving behind the good things of React. I'm just embracing the good things about Vue. That's enough for me. And then if someone else, yeah, and JS like, and I think people are a bit confused by, like what is JSX, what is reconciliation, what is reactive state management. So if we think about JSX as like putting HTML in JavaScript, you see that, for example, Solid.js also does that. But that's not reconciliation. In Solid, that function component only runs once. So you can't use like if statements or switch statements or for loops or anything like that to describe your user interface. You have to have these special components to do that. But then you get the same problem as you do with templates, which is TypeScript. Like the typing doesn't work in Solid for dynamic user interfaces because they're using these special components. So you kind of want, yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, I hope it will be fun to, yeah, it will be fun to, yeah, kind of, as you say, there seems to be a conversation that needs to be had there, which isn't being having, which is not being had. Can you say that? Doesn't matter. But yeah, so for me, like, I don't only want JSX, I also want reconciliation, because reconciliation is the thing that makes it possible for me to just use if statements and TypeScript without ever being worried about future version of TypeScript or whatever. And Vue does that, which is amazing. It's just hidden in this define component abstraction with no children as props and this attributes fold through thing that's weird. There's just some weird things. But we can fix that. Maybe. But yeah, thanks for the encouragement, Sam. Yeah, To share state efficiently, we use a React context. The consuming components will reconcile when the value from the context changes. What this means in practice is that the consuming components will reconcile regardless of what state from this reducer they are consuming. This is something the React compiler cannot fix. It can memorize as much as it wants in my context, but at the end of the day, the value passed on the context has to change, and every single consuming component will reconcile. So even with the React compiler, we will still be leaning towards global state management solutions to fix the performance issues of React. And this is my biggest friction with React. Why do we need to work with two different sets of state management primitives in different types of runtimes to build applications? I like the rhythm there. It's like pow at the end. Rolling back. So let us move back in time. There is no React compiler, there is no concurrent mode, no strict mode, and no hooks. Back to user interfaces as a function of state. If React rather introduced reactive primitives and made components observers, could we have avoided having to deal with the mental overhead of hooks, strict mode, node lifecycle hooks, React compiler, and a secondary global state management solution? Oh, what's happening here? Whoa. I'm of course in no position to conclude on that, but I am allowed to ask the question. Right? We will never know, but maybe there is a solution out there that did take a different path. A solution that allows us to keep what we fundamentally love about React, but without all this overhead and performance concerns with state management. Is that a question? I think. Let us list what it needs to fulfill. JSX support reconciles the user interface, adhering to user interface as a function of state. Components should only reconcile by what they observe, meaning they default to not reconciling from parents. Reactive primitives defined in a separate scope, but exposed to the component where we reconcile the user interface. Lifecycle hooks. Even though we are trying to break up with React due to the technical decisions, we still want a community, and we still we would also break up with its community. That really sucks. That really sucks. But that, so we also have to consider that an important factor. Okay, with that in mind, our choices are Vue, Svelte, Angular, and Solid.js. We can immediately drop off Svelte and Angular as templates, and custom type checking is not where we want to go. Not custom type checking, but limited type checking is not where we want to go. Solid.js does get us quite close, but there is no reconciliation in Solid.js, meaning we cannot rely on the language for expressing dynamic user interfaces. That leaves us with Vue. Or have native typing support. That leaves us with Vue. We're going to continue now by first evaluating the API available to us in Vue. Just see how far we get and what trade-offs we have to make. Then we're going to see if we can do something about these trade-offs. Evaluating Vue. All Vue projects uses Vite, also developed by the Vue team. In the default configuration, we just changed to Vite.js plugin Vue.js. We are ready to embrace reconciling user interfaces and observing. That's not the only thing we need to do. We changed to Vite. We also add JSX typing to our tsconfig JSON file. So that will be the thing up here. Where are we? Oh, this is JSON. Yeah, I think that's I should do this. TS configure. Yeah, and this will be view. Let us start by defining a simple component and render it. So by default in Vue, you can just create a normal component and you can mount it as exactly like you would do with React. You can also use props just like you would with React. And now let us look at final core mechanic, children. So in React, we use props.children, but Vue has a different approach called slots. It is certainly simpler to use children from the props, and with React, they will also be tight when consuming the component. This is our first note to address. This is our first thing. This is the first thing we need to address. Talking about state, let us define some state. React defines its state management in the same function as the reconciling user interface. When our state management is reactive, we need to define it in its own function scope. Let us first look at how we would write this in React. Okay, so we're do we really need to do that? When dealing with state, Vue exports define component function. So it's a low that I. Okay, let's explain it instead of. It's a low-level API that I personally do not think communicates well enough the high-level terminology of Vue and how a reactive state management scope. Okay, let's explain how it works. The define component function introduces two function scopes. The past function is your state management scope, and the return function is the user interface scope, which will reconcile on observed changes. And how are so it's interesting. Like I'm having a hard time. Like this isn't bad. Like we have to define two functions. So why not define a function that returns a function? I just, for some reason, I just don't like it. It just doesn't. It diverges so much from React. Return function is the user interface scope, which will reconcile. Like to convince a React developer to use Vue and convincing a React to move. I think use Vue. I think the signature needs to better invite to defining components as simple functions, even though they are introduced state. This is the second thing to address. Maybe we should make it bold. This is the first thing to address. this is the second thing to address. Let us imagine that, okay. Addressing issues. The last Vue also has a behavior called fall through attributes. Let's put a link to that. Vue.js fall through attributes. This allows you to add any native attribute, to add certain native attributes to components like style, class, or on click. These attributes will automatically be added to the root element returned inside the component. In React, we want the behavior of the component to be controlled completely from the component and completely from the component, and any outside influence should happen through props. This is the third thing to address. Okay, so I have 3 things addressing the issues. Okay, those are really the things to address. So what we want to do now is just 2 seconds. Yes, so what we're going to do now is actually write out how we address these issues. Yeah, and then we're going to have a section where this is going to be a long article. Scaling state management. And then we're going to talk about how we naturally are now able to just provide state to a component. And then by just providing that same state that you provide to the component down the component tree, you now have shared state management. Or if you want to actually like create a global store, you can do that stuff as well. Yeah, and then I want to write about comes from solving the same problem we are trying to solve. Build UIs. Well, I wouldn't say React. Of course, React comes from the same thing. But I mean like created by UI developers. So it's very interesting. React wasn't created like Sebastian, who's been like, I guess not formally like the lead of the React team. He's definitely been like the lead architect of React, but it wasn't created by him. It was created by this other guy. And I wonder. So that's what I wonder. So this is just a theory. Like, what's the original? Who created React originally? Yeah, Jordan Walk. I wonder if Jordan Walk was an actual user interface, user experience engineer. Like, he actually built user interfaces. Yeah, while working on Facebook's newsfeed. And I wonder what could maybe have, like, why did React end up here technically? Could it be that, like, and I don't want to like say, I don't mean this as like saying that anyone did anything wrong. It's just to understand what happened. Like, we all do, I don't have all the information, first of all, and we all do what we think is the right thing to do based on what information and experience we have. But I wonder if Jordan Walk was an actual UI engineer, and then as React had such a complex, like, it's a complex type of, it's a complex software, more senior engineers were put on the team to develop React further, but they weren't user interface developers. They were excellent programmers, but they weren't experienced in the thing that the tool was trying to solve. So React's development was more driven by conceptual programming paradigms to solve a problem, instead of just driven by an intuition and a friction of solving a problem. Yeah, I don't know how to put it. Okay, where were we? We were trying to addressing some issues. Okay, addressing the issues. To be able to address these issues, we have to develop yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how like, I remember create component and it had mix-ins, and that didn't work very well. Well, class components, like, just so you're having a presentation, you're talking to engineers, and you're saying, we have this thing called a component, and it renders UI, and it can have some state, and there's some lifecycle hooks related to that this component will reconcile. Will be mounted, it will update, and it will unmount. And this component is handled by React. React will ensure you just describe how the user interface should look, and React will keep that user interface up to date. And then you have the class definition. It has a render method. It has an onMount component did mount, component will unmount. It has state. Like, it just has the concept in it. But again, most developers are trained object oriented. So like, I have to be fair that that's very much part of our intuition. We're not like trained functional. I don't know if anyone is. And then you can argue, yeah, but it's because object oriented is more like how the world works. But again, like, I've only seen functional paradigms work well where you don't have to manage state. And this is the whole thing. Again, like, components as a function works well when you don't have to manage state. Like, it works. But as soon as you have to manage state, functional, just in my experience, breaks down. Yeah. Yeah, ins and outs, transform data. And that's why I remember, I can't remember his name, but the guy who's been selling RxJS, I have a lot of respect for him. He's a really good guy. And he's been like educating the community, but also trying to sometimes maybe being a bit too passionate and saying that this, like, RxJS is the way to do programming. But again, like Netflix, where it came out of, I believe, they were dealing with like transforming stuff coming from the server. Like, it was used for something very specific. And then it's like it's a programming idea, and you can try to apply it to other things, and you can do it. Like, you can use RxJS for state management. Like, I remember, what was it called, Cycle.js? Andre Staltz, which I also have a lot of respect for. He has an amazing presentation on the user as an input or something. Really good conceptual ideas. And mental models, but RxJS is just incredibly difficult to understand. Just like algebraic effects is incredibly difficult to understand. And I think you can apply these great ideas and mental concepts with simpler tools. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Where were we? To be able to address these issues, we have to develop, we have to implement an NPM package. We have to create an NPM package. To be able to address all these issues, we have to create an NPM package. Let us call it view productivity, to give it to emphasize. Well, I don't know. Let's call it view product. Whatever. Yeah. And it's also like we're building, and it's interesting. I saw this talk or interview with Jonathan Blow. Is that his name? And he talks about like how all these user interfaces are failing all the time, and it's because it's bad programmers. And bad languages. Like, he hates JavaScript. And I completely, like, from the perspective of doing things correct and reliably, there's certain systems that needs to be correct and reliable, but there are few of them. And then you have all these user interfaces. There's so many of them, and they don't have to be correct and reliable. Like, the consequence of them having bugs it's so small compared to like a banking system, for example. So, but since there's so many of them and the consequence of having a bug is so small, like it's shit annoying, but it's small. You want tools that makes people like engineers incredibly productive. It's not about them being amazing engineers and programmers. It's about them putting out value for people, and not spending like 5 years building something that can take like 6 months and it's good enough. There's something called good enough on the web. And that breaks the like maybe even core values for some people, and I understand that. And if someone can find a way to do more reliable or can make like user interface development more reliable with less bugs, that's great. But we're kind of seeing that we're not quite able to do that without adding so much mental overhead and complexity, that we're kind of reducing the productivity we have or can have. And just a lot of frustrated people around the world. But I think TypeScript gets us so far with this. So if we can have something that's considered simple and type safe, that's something. Like we built stuff on the web for a long time, complex stuff without types. Anyways, let us call it view productivity. I have to create an npm package. Let us call it view productivity. What was the first issue? It was a children thing, right? Our first issue to address is related to children. We do not want to move away from views terminology. So let us call it slots. The challenge with Vue is that these slots are not provided on the props passed to the component, which means they are not typed either. Like Vue handles it. Like Vue has so much custom typing. It's insane. Like from what I read in the documentation, like if you have a single file component and you have a setup script at the top and you call define slots and give it a type definition, it's a custom Vue implementation that finds that call to define slots and extracts the type definition. And there's certain limits to how you can do that typing. It doesn't handle all kinds of typing, but it extracts that typing and then applies it to like its own type checker. So when you use that component in other files, it will have that information. But that's kind of, it will never be perfect because TypeScript evolves and changes. And yeah, anyways, I'm just saying that it's a big challenge to put typing, custom typing. And it's such a relief to just rely on the language. Yeah, anyways, which means they are not typed either. They are not typed. Which means they are not typed. Okay, so I'm kind of just writing it down now. It's probably not going to be that good, but the challenge with Vue is that these slots are not provided on props passes. To fix the typing, we need to provide our own JSX import source, which adds the slots as what is it called? It's called where is the other thing? Oh, did I put it here? Component. Oh, I should eat some lunch. Element children attribute. That's it. Which adds the slots as a element children attribute for JSX to resolve, for TypeScript to resolve. For TypeScript to resolve. That means when you configure Vue, you will do, where is that thingy? I'm not going to go into details on exactly how this is done. The second thing yeah, so I built I set up a repo for Vue productivity, and I have the code. Oh, I have the code here, but I haven't put it in here yet. So I need to move it over. And then publish it. Yeah, maybe I should do that first. Yeah, maybe we should do that first. Let's get the code in there. Let's see. So, oh. Let's see. So I did put all this stuff in there. No, okay. So let's take that. This is the JSX runtime thing. Oh, vnode from Vue. Okay. So this is, we completely override the typing, but what we can do here is we can just use, let's see, I just got to check. I'm gonna check the server renderer. Where's the Vue JSX runtime? So we have an index.js file which uses require. So we can say okay, so how should we do this? Export JSX equals require Vue JSX runtime. Okay, so this would be JSX runtime. Well, I guess we can just export. How do you do this? I can remember this. Exports. Can I just kind of take all of it and export all of it? No, I can't do that. I have to. Exports JSX. This is what's silly about this is that this is actually not used by Vue. This would be if TypeScript would compile. I believe if TypeScript was to compile do the compilation. Because here it's actually like exporting JSX, JSXS, JSXDev, and fragment. But when you look at the source code, it's actually importing create v node from Vue. So it's not actually using this. It's only using it for typing. But let's just do this. Cool. And then it's JSXDev. And then it's fragment. Okay, and then it's the MJS file. So here we can just do export star from Vue JSX runtime. Yeah. That should be fine. So yeah, we don't want to do anything about that. It's only the typing we care about. Cool. So now we have that. And then we have the slots proxy. We have the create component thing. Yeah, and then we have to build the thing. I'm not sure. I've thought about like using Vue to build a library, but I think I should just use TSUp library. Zup, the simplest way. Zup. So let's do that. Oh, sorry, not demo, but Vue productivity, yarn add zup. And then we add, oh, did it add stuff? Scripts, build, zup, source index TS. Is that all we need? Yarn build. Yeah, but I want typing as well. Oh, do I have to use TypeScript for that? Yeah, I wanna have both. Actually, we don't. Oh, this is absolute freedom. Like we can actually build this as ESM because it's Vue, right? And it has support for. Oh, that's amazing. How do we do that? Oh, maybe we should use Vue or Vite, I mean. Yeah, Vite build library. Building for production. Does it have library mode? This is the thing I want. Yeah. You know what? Let's try this. Let's drop this. Let's drop zup. I guess it's just Vite. Yarn add Vite. And then we have new file vite.config.ts. So this would be source index TS. But does this actually convert TypeScript? Vite build TypeScript library. I like every time. But this is like, this article is massive. This is too much. Okay. I'm not gonna use any of this. I'm just gonna use let's see. We're gonna yarn add TypeScript latest to the yeah, but I don't think I get the type definitions. And I also have to put it in library mode and stuff. You do? Does it automatically handle it? Oh, what happened? Yeah, but I think I have to do... Okay, let's see what it builds. It's interesting to explore. Vite build... Vite library mode. How do you set library mode? Can I just do like dash dash something? Or do I have to have... Isn't there like a CLI argument? Oh, type module. Oh, Vite plugin DTS. Okay, let's see. Let's try vite.config.ts. Define config. Isn't it define config? Oh my god. Why does things have to be so difficult? And then it was yarn add Vite plugin DTS. Import DTS from Vite plugin DTS. Plugins. Where's plugins? Is it up here? Plugins? Yeah. DTS. And then insert types entry true. And then it's source index TS view productivity file name index roll up. Yeah, we can externalize view output. I don't think we need this, but I wonder if it's like building this weird. It only needs to be an ESM. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I guess it's fine. Yeah, and then what should this be? Main main should be dist index JS, and then what should the other thing be? Let's look here. I'm seriously not sure what we're gonna do about impact. Oh my god, it hurts. Though it would be an interesting prelude. The whole thing is like spent a year developing impact and then only to realize. Let's see, impact package JSON. Main. Oh, so module. Oh, type module, and then you have module is dist index.umd.cgs. I think. No, module is. Oh, it's only ESM. Oh, we need types as well. Types dist. Yeah, thanks, Adam. Where do I put the? Didn't I have the view thing here? View package JSON. Where is view? Template? What the hell is this? Isn't this the view? Oh, that's create view. I hate publishing packages. So it's module types and package JS deliver files, exports. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. That's the thing I was looking for. I don't think that one makes sense. Main index.js. Why is that different? I think those should be the same. Module. And then we have, oh, what the fuck is it called? Exports. Oh, this is so confusing. Import. Oh, should I have dot slash? No, there I need to have dot slash. Oh my God. Types MTS. Okay, index.dts. So this would be index. I think this is a problem that it's called JS. Default. Require. Oh, come on. This is so confusing. This is complete madness. Yeah, and we really should, like, it should be above. How do I do that? 3x, something like that. Anyways, so I think we should be able to actually use it here now. Let's try it. So we have that thing, and this should have a dependency to view productivity. Just star, I think. I'm not sure if I even need to do yarn install again. Yeah, it's like what I'm doing is insane. So this has to do with how to get the code of this package into your code environment. So this is like if you're on an ESM type of environment, use these types. If it's on Node, do this. In the browser, do this. Oh. But if you're in a required type of environment, which is CommonJS, you have this, and then in Node you have production. I don't think we don't need that. Oh, so this should be .umd. Yeah, so it's basically there's a ESM and a CommonJS bundle, and then you have to tell whatever environment is trying to import this package how to get the correct version. It's a complete mess, and I hate it. But I don't think this is an actual issue with Vue if you're using Vite. What were we doing? We're gonna try to actually use it. So in app here, I should be able to do export default, create component. Yeah, from Vue productivity. Let's see if it actually runs. So this is package. Yeah, let's just jump into demo, dev. Let's see if it says hello world. And it does. Amazing. Cool. Maybe we could play around with it a little bit. What's that fading thing? Is that a... What's that fading thing? Oh, assets main CSS. Interesting. Yeah, it's working. Let's see. Let me push it. Oh, git status. Package. Now. Warning. All right. This is an experiment. So I don't make that mistake again. Okay, so we have hello world here. So basically, let's try to build like a to-do app. So let's move this up, app. So we have our app here, and what we want to do now, we want to introduce some state. So we want some to-dos. Well, let's do type to-do, title completed, it's a boolean, and then we have to-dos, which is a list of to-dos. Some other state we need to handle like new to-do title, which is a string. I guess that's fine for now. Should we based on ID, or I can just use an index? So what's interesting now is that I'm kind of in my terminology thing where, like, we're calling it state, but it's really what we expose from the setup. So it's like it has methods as well. So I'm not sure if state is the right term to use here. Maybe setup is the thing you want to call, but it's weird to kind of call it setup when you receive it in a component. So let's just call it state for now. And what we want to do is add to do. Yeah, interestingly enough, we don't need a title because we're going to add it from the new to do title. And then we have toggle to do. Let's just use the index for that. Toggle completed. And then we create a setup. It doesn't take any props, but we want it to return this state. And we're just going to actually return reactive. Yeah, and I think it's actually enough to... Oh, no, sorry. So reactive doesn't take actual Yeah, this is kind of annoying. How should I type this? You know, actually the documentation of Vue says that you should avoid reactive. So we can do that for now. New to do title. Let's use a ref instead, which is a string. And then we have to-dos, which is a list of to-do. And then let's see. Yeah, that's basically what we have. So let's return get new to-do title. Like we could just return the oops, to-dos value. We could just return the actual to-dos and new to-do title, but I'm the kind of person who wants I want them to be exposed as read-only. That's just me. So to-dos value push, and we need a title, which will be the new to-do title, and we say completed false. And we also wanna new to-do title dot value, and we also wanna say new to-do title dot value is empty string, and then was it toggle completed index to-dos value index completed. Like so. That's our state management. So we have our setup. We receive our state here now. We should be able to go in and say div. Oh, what that? Oh, sorry. And we'll have our input. Oh, yeah, this is. Yeah, wait a minute. Maybe because here we just want to sync. Let's just expose new to do title. That's fine. So this will be a ref for a string. So we allow to mutate it from the outside. And then, but we don't want to do anything with the to-dos from the outside. I think we're going to do this. Because now new to do title is state new to do title value. Does it have on change like React? State dot new to do title dot value equals event target dot value. Oh, interesting. It has different typing. What's this? Oh, it's possibly null. Why is it possibly null? This is bad typing. This annoys me. It's not possibly null because I'm changing it on an actual thing. It should be fixed. And then it doesn't exist. Yeah, because this is like just an event. This should really be typed to input change. What's it called? HTML input change event. Doesn't it have? Yeah, this is this is bad. Like this typing needs to be fixed. I wonder how React does that. React. Oh, I need to take a break. I should eat some food. But let's look at that. Oh, React definitely typed. So how does it do it? It's almost like it should just. What if we just use the React typing? We'll probably have some other changes. On change. So I'm not even sure if we should use on change. Is it on input? Does that have a different typing? No, it's all just event. So change event handler. And it takes the type of yeah. So that's how they do the typing, and then view GitHub. Like it's like you can't use it if that doesn't work. Like if someone, like I understand why React developer doesn't go to Vue, especially if they want to keep using JSX. JSX runtime. Where was the Vue runtime DOM? Yeah, I was thinking maybe we could just use the React typing. I wonder what would be different. Like it has a lot of like components and stuff in it, but at least the element. Oh, you did. Sorry. Maybe I saw it in like the corner of my eye and I stole it. What was it? Yeah, runtime DOM. I can't remember. Yeah, here it is. On change. Yeah, so they just say event. They don't say. Yeah, they simplified it too much. Yeah, at least the HTML part of the typing. Where is change event? Bivariance hack, interesting. Yeah. But I thought there was like, you could actually put the... Because I don't think they even, like they don't even, they have very generic typing. So you just have, so for example, for input, where's input? Where's input? Input HTML attributes. Where are you? So these are just yeah. This sucks. This is gonna be in HTML input. Isn't there like God damn it. This event is sucks. It's just everything's possibly null. Anyways, let us finish that's something that needs to be fixed. Fucking sucks. Let's see if this thing even runs. Oh, hey, that's nice. And then state.todos, we map over them to do. I guess we use the index. For now, let's just shove in a li to do the title. And what's it called? Let's just do to do dot completed, not completed, and then on click state toggle completed index. Yeah, I know that Vue has some bindings, two-way data binding things, but I might confuse it with some external stuff. I think like they talk about it here in the render function vmodel. Yeah, so you can, but this is for component, which is what I don't quite understand. I thought this was for I'm not sure what this is. Yeah, exactly. Oh, should we have on key down event? I guess we'll get some type of issues here. Key, oh, that one's fine. Oh yeah, because it was keyword event. State add to do. Oh, didn't we add the wait, what the hell happened there? What? I am confused. Why isn't the title there? Why isn't the title there? What the hell? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is it actually syncing it to the... Yeah, on change is probably not running. It's just, yeah, because we're used to like controlled inputs in React. Like if I do on input. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's the on change thing. What does Vue do that? Vue.js. Like how this form input bindings. Yeah, they think about it as input. That's interesting. So that's also something like use on input. But the fucking typing. Anyways, it worked. And then we just flip it. That's nice. That's kind of what you would expect. Like we could simplify it even more. We could remove these two and just return new to do title and to do's and just do everything in the interface. That would also be like fine if this was the only UI. The point is that you can choose now how you do this. Do you want like a strong separation between setup and the function or the component? Or do you just want to kind of leak out the state and just do everything there? And this also depends on the complexity, right? So if you were to provide this to some nested component, you would probably have stronger control. Yeah, you would want stronger control. But you can choose. That's the point. You can make it super simple, and you don't really have. It's only about this interface you're exposing. But okay, how the fuck are we gonna fix this typing? God damn it. I like this idea of stealing the element typing from React. Does this have on input? Yeah. Form event handler. Oh, that's interesting though. Because they use onChange. And they have this onChange event handler. Well, it's very easy to override types. So but I'm gonna see if Vue.jsx event types. Let's see, JSX element event types are bad. Much smaller API surface, no native event emitting makes for more maintainable. Element JSX on input types. Handle input. What the hell? Oh yeah, so you have, yeah, basically the point is that it's lacking a generic, right? So this should have, you should at least make the event a generic so that you can pass in HTML input element. But I don't think that even works. No, because then the target can still be null. Yeah. This is really bad. This is really, really bad. Damn it. We need to do something clever. What I don't understand is why isn't this in the like global JSX stuff? Okay, I haven't eaten lunch and my back is starting to hurt. So I'm gonna stop streaming. But the point is we are getting somewhere. So I'm gonna keep writing on this. Like what we're doing with this Vue productivity thing. And then we're just gonna keep playing with it. Build stuff, kind of see how naturally the state management scales. Maybe we could even use the family Scrum app to like deal with some really big complexity. But yeah, we have to like and not get into the situation where, oh, but that'll be fine. Like, no, you can't have shitty typings on event handlers. The event handlers has to know what element they're bound to and give the correct typing. It's super important. But I think, yeah, I'm gonna reflect on that, see if we can figure it out. But another thing that needs to be addressed, but it's kind of the same as the children thing. So I think we can find a solution there. So there's there's no added solution. It's more another typing thing that needs to be addressed. Okay, anyways, thanks for... This was a long stream. Shit, we've all been streaming for 3 hours. Wow, is it like 5 people watching? That's fun. Maybe we should go a bit more. Okay, let's continue. That motivated me. How would we do this? How would we do this? Oh, I need food. Sorry. I'm gonna drop out. Let's see what we can figure out with the types, and then go from there. Okay, bye for now.